In my previous video, Most Active PlayStation 3 Online Games in 2023, I covered a good amount of PlayStation 3 games that were still online. Turns out, that was just the tip of the iceberg, as there's plenty of other PlayStation 3 games that are still being played today that I didn't even cover. Today, I'll be showing you the most active PlayStation 3 online communities in 2023. I tested over 30 games during the span of a week and a weekend. All my tests are done in North America. If you live outside this region, then your mileage may vary in terms of finding a solid player population. If you want to find other PlayStation 3 communities, check out the PlayStation 3 Online LAN Discord. It's a very active community with weekly game nights and plenty of people who are looking to repopulate older PlayStation titles. Also, big shout out to Dorian_D for letting me use his footage for the games I was unable to test myself. He is a great PlayStation 3 content creator who deserves more recognition. To kickstart this list, let's start with the most active Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 is still quite active in 2023. I came across various lobbies in both its co-op campaign and its versus mode. One of the main benefits of this game is it displays a region of the player, which helps not only connect you to the best match closest to you, but gives you an idea of where the players are playing in your own region. Worth noting, I tested this on the Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition, as the original Resident Evil 5 actually might differ. Resident Evil 6. Now, I couldn't test this game myself, however, Dorian_D was kind enough to let me use his footage in his recent video, which explores PlayStation 3 online games. According to Dorian, Resident Evil 6 is still active, and he was able to find a co-op lobby for its single-player campaign. YouTuber PlayStation 3 Online did upload a video 9 months back showcasing a match in Resident Evil 6 Predator vs mode. So if you happen to be playing this on the PlayStation 3, then give that a try while you're at it. The next Resident Evil game I tested was Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. This isn't a popular entry in the series, but to my surprise, it is still populated. I was able to find a match in versus with ease. I did not get the chance to test the co-op campaign, but if I had to guess, there's probably people still playing that too. If you like a PvP game with zombies thrown into the mix, then this is a game for you. Moving on to the Resident Evil Revelation games. I start with Resident Evil Revelations 1. Now, to my knowledge, the raid mode is the only multiplayer aspect of this game. I tried a few times, and I was unable to find a lobby at the time of the recording. Revelations 2, on the other hand, yielded better results, as it was more consistent with finding an open lobby. Out of all the Resident Evil games, I still think Resident Evil 5 remained the most popular. Now, let's talk about the Call of Duty games. The Call of Duty series remains the most popular online games on the PlayStation 3. In my previous tests, I found that Black Ops 2 had the largest player population. That being said, outside of Call of Duty 3 and Call of Duty Classic, you can generally find a lobby in most games, and Team Deathmatch at least. I made a video covering the most active Call of Duty games in the PlayStation 3, so if you want to learn more about that, there's a link in the description down below. Speaking of first-person shooters, I covered the Battlefield games in my previous video, and my results remain the same as before. If you did not get a chance to see that video, here's a quick recap. Most, if not all, Battlefield games are still active in 2023. Out of all the Battlefield games, Battlefield Bad Company 1 isn't as consistent as all of them, but you're still bound to find players on the weekend. The most active Battlefield games in my experience tend to be Battlefield 4, 1943, and Bad Company 2, whereas Bad Company 1, Battlefield Hardline, and Battlefield 3 are still populated, but there's less of a population among these games. Regardless, it still remains one of the most active PlayStation online communities in 2023. Now let's talk about the Payday games. Starting with Payday 1, also known as Payday the Heist. Payday the Heist was the first Payday game in the series. Released originally on the PSN and PC, it used to have a small community surrounding it. During my test, I couldn't find anyone playing this game, despite which difficulty I searched for. My man LegHD did find a lobby in it a month ago, so if you have this game on your PlayStation 3, I recommend giving it a shot on a weekend or an evening. On the other hand, Payday 2 was the most popular one in the series. In Payday 2, I was able to find at least 5 lobbies in my experience, with even players joining mid-game. This game still has a solid player population and is probably one of the best co-op games on this list. Now let's talk about Ubisoft games. Kicking off the Ubisoft list, let's talk about Ghost Recon Future Soldier. Ghost Recon Future Soldier was recently brought back online thanks to Ubisoft. Unfortunately, to my surprise, I couldn't find a lobby in this game. Other YouTube content creators like LegHD had better success than me, so I still believe people are playing it, rather I just didn't test it during its peak hours. I also tried Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2, but it looks like this game is actually still offline. Meanwhile, I had the same issue with Splinter Cell Blacklist as well. I first tested its Spies vs Mercs mode. This also yielded no results in terms of lobbies. I tried other modes like its TDM and co-op mode to no success as well. PlayStation 3 content creator Dorian_D was able to find a lobby and clearly shows that the game is somewhat active, just like Ghost Recon. If you get the chance to play this game, highly recommend playing out Spies vs Mercs. It's a unique and fun multiplayer mode that you don't really see anymore. For the hell of it, I also checked Splinter Cell Double Agent, and it looks like the servers for this game are also shut down as well too. Speaking of Tom Clancy, I revisit some of the Rainbow Six games while I was at it. First, with Rainbow Six Vegas 1. Rainbow Six Vegas 1 appears to be a ghost town nowadays. I was unable to find a single lobby during my tests in any of the game modes listed in the game, including Terrorist Hunt, as well as any of the PvP modes. Meanwhile, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 is still active in 2023. Both Terrorist Hunt and PvP had lobbies with a solid player count, all things considered. It's best to play this one on a weekend as I find more people playing it versus during the week. Another game that Ubisoft brought back was Driver San Francisco. Now, this is one of the games I was unable to test as I don't have it on hand, but it appears the community is active for this game. Now, there's another game on this list that was supposed to be a driver game, but ended up being its own game on its own. I'm talking about Watch Dogs. Now, the multiplayer for Watch Dogs was integrated into the actual main game, meaning that players could invade your game at any time. In my experience, I was able to find others still playing Watch Dogs in its invasion mode. If you enjoy a cat and mouse style of experience, honestly, it doesn't get better than this. I also tested the Far Cry games. Let's start with Far Cry 2. Although it brought me to the main screen for multiplayer, the game was constantly searching for a match, but it never actually found one. It doesn't let you actually cancel this, so you have to restart your PlayStation 3 or close the game manually. Because of this, I was unable to verify if it was populated or not. I then tried Far Cry 3 and had no luck with this one. The game kept trying to connect to the server, but it never actually ended up connecting. I believe Ubisoft shut this one down a while back, and it appears that this is the case. Now, Far Cry 4 I was unable to test during my research, but considering Ubisoft shut down the servers for Far Cry 3, I wouldn't be surprised if 4 was offline as well too. Lag HD not too long ago uploaded some co-op gameplay, but I don't know if that was recently or was before the server shut down. Various Assassin's Creed games were brought back online / revived this year as well, the most popular being Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag. The Assassin's Creed multiplayer mode is PvP where players pretend to be NPCs and hunt each other across the map. What makes this mode unique is that not only are you trying to hunt down other players who are pretending to be NPCs, you have to pretend to be an NPC yourself, so other players can't tell who's an NPC and who's not. According to what I read on the Discord, this game is mostly played during the weekends on both Black Flag and Assassin's Creed 3. The other Assassin's Creed games, including Revelations, is also online, but apparently it's not as active. If you want to try this multiplayer mode out, definitely recommend checking out the Discord, as a lot of people get together and start matches from there. Grand Theft Auto 4 was up next. Generally with Grand Theft Auto 4, you can find people in free roam most of the time, while other modes like Cops and Crooks or Deathmatch is much harder. If you just want to jump in the lobby and play GTA 4, stick to free roam as it's a safe bet for most of the week and of course on the weekends. Now, if I'm talking about Rockstar games in this list, then we gotta mention Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption is a lot like GTA 4 in my experience, where everyone picks free roam versus any PvP modes. I find that despite them having an equal player population, Red Dead Redemption is a bit more consistent when finding a free roam lobby that has a lot of players. Regardless of which game you choose, they're both consistent and active in 2023. Dead Island 1 was a popular co-op zombie RPG back when it released in 2011. It was a game that garnered a lot of attention thanks to its CGI trailer, which is considered one of the best video game trailers of all time still to this day. Anyways, during my time with Dead Island 1, I did come across another player. Originally, the server browser showed 0 players, but then I got a random invite within 5 minutes of searching. Now, I don't know if the matches only work if you're close in story progression or level, but this still worked in my favor. This is still a game worth playing with your friends in 2023. Then I wondered, what about the expansion, Dead Island Riptide? Riptide was released a few years after the original. I completed the prologue, then searched for a lobby right after that, just like I did with Dead Island 1, but I was unable to find a match. I was hoping someone would invite me just like in Dead Island 1, but unfortunately this wasn't the case. It seems to me that Dead Island Riptide has either a smaller player base than the original Dead Island, or it's pretty much dead. If you want to play Dead Island on the PlayStation 3, stick to the original one if you want to play online co-op with random people. Now, while we're on the topic of zombie games, what if I told you there was a series that was set in space? It didn't necessarily have zombies, but the closest thing to them. I'm talking about Dead Space 2. Dead Space 2 had a very underrated multiplayer mode that many people forget about. It was a PvP mode where you either play as nanosuits or as necromorphs. This mode was a lot of fun as it required a lot of tactics from both teams and even timing to come out on top. Thankfully, it's still active in 2023 if you never got a chance to try it. I was able to find lobbies with ease and it appears to be active even throughout the week as well. If you never get a chance to play Dead Space 2, definitely try out the single player campaign, then give the multiplayer mode a try as well. It's well worth your time. While we're on the topic of Dead Space, a few years later, Dead Space 3 was released. If you enjoyed Resident Evil 5's co-op style multiplayer, then you'll probably enjoy Dead Space 3's multiplayer. Unlike Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3 only offered one game mode, and that wasn't PvP, rather a cooperative campaign. I was able to come across a lobby within 2 minutes of matchmaking in this game with no issues. A lot of people didn't like Dead Space 3 as its co-op took away from the horror element that the original Dead Space 1 and 2 were known for, but in my opinion, going back to it now, it's not as bad as I remembered. This is another solid game to check out if Resident Evil 5 isn't your cup of tea. Speaking of co-op games, Mass Effect 3 had an underrated multiplayer mode. Now, the Mass Effect franchise isn't the first thing that comes to your head when I talk about co-op experiences, but Mass Effect 3 had a very under-the-radar multiplayer mode that still holds up in 2023. It's a 4-player survival horde-based mode that's more like Call of Duty Zombies, but with a Mass Effect coat of paint attached to it. It appears this game is still played during the weekends, and if you're lucky, on the odd time during the week. Now, to my knowledge, it's the only Mass Effect game to have a multiplayer component to it, so if you're getting sick and tired of playing zombies or other cooperative games, then give this one a try. The Borderlands games. Borderlands 2 is a well-known cooperative shooter on the PlayStation 3 and still remains popular in 2023. I was able to find one lobby when I was testing the game. This was at the beginning of Borderlands 2, as I'm not too sure if Borderlands 2 only matchmakes you with people who are closer in story progression. Despite that, I was still able to find a player, and they ended up kicking me afterwards. But this does show that people are still playing this game in 2023. I was going to test Borderlands 1, but when the GameSpy servers shut down, it actually shut down the Borderlands 1 servers for the PlayStation 3, as it used GameSpy servers to power the multiplayer for that game. Now, there is such thing as OpenSpy, but I've never actually tested it on the PlayStation 3, so I couldn't confirm if it still works in Borderlands 1. As of 2023, to my knowledge, this game is still offline. What list wouldn't be complete without talking about Minecraft? On a Saturday afternoon, I was able to find other players in the battle mode. Now, when I was matchmaking, I used the any filter for game modes, which will automatically assign you to a random mode, but I'm sure the other additional modes in Minecraft have players playing them as well too. I'm not surprised that Minecraft is still active considering how popular the game is even in 2023, so if you like building stuff or exploring worlds, then this is a perfect game for that. It's still a great cooperative experience and actually runs really well on the PlayStation 3. Fight Night Champions. The Fight Night series is something we don't see anymore. That hasn't stopped people from playing Fight Night Champions in 2023. One of the most active fighting games on the PlayStation 3, I was able to find a match with ease. At the time of the recording, the player count was at 60 players, which seems pretty accurate. This was also on a Friday morning on top of that, so I can only imagine how busy this game is at night. If you like fighting games, then this is a safe bet. Diablo 3. If dungeon crawlers are more of your thing, then Diablo 3 is for you. Since I don't have this game on hand, I could not verify if it's still active or not, but people in the comments of my previous video, plus a video by 2ZZ Tomorrowman, confirms that this game is still active. Considering how big Diablo is as a franchise, I'm really not surprised it's still active, as there's a very loyal following behind the game. If a top-down dungeon crawler isn't your thing, then why not give Destiny a try? Destiny is a first-person MMORPG released by Bungie way back in 2014. The game still remains popular in its main story mode, as well as its PvP Crucible game mode. If you never got a chance to play the original Destiny, or if you want to go back to it, then the PlayStation 3 version is still a great way to do it. Skate 3 is a game I covered in my previous video, and I'm happy to report it's still active in 2023. I had no issues finding a match in this game, and it's still alive and kicking. Definitely revisit Skate 3 while you still can, before EA decides to shut this one down next too. Need for Speed Rivals. The last Need for Speed game to be released on the PlayStation 3, Rivals still remains a popular choice if you're in the racing games. During my test, I was unable to find a lobby, but this is more likely due to the time when I did the test, which was really late at night. Now, I've seen other content creators cover this game with better results, so I say your chances are a lot better than mine. Operation Flashpoint Red River is a tactical first-person shooter that time forgot about. In my testing, I couldn't find a lobby in this game. Other YouTubers on this platform were more luckier than than I was, but the general sentiment for Red River, it's a really hit or miss game when it comes to finding a player population. The Call of Juarez series. The Call of Juarez series had 2 games that had multiplayer included with them. This was Bound in Blood and The Cartel. I start with Bound in Blood first. Bound in Blood used to have an active online community on consoles for the longest period of time, but it seems it's not as common as it used to be. I've actually been testing this game for the past month, and still I'm unable to find a single lobby. This is a really hard one to find a match in, and I would consider it dead nowadays. This also extends to Call of Juarez The Cartel as well too. It's a real shame as both games offered something different than other PvP first-person shooters on the PlayStation 3. Aliens Colonial Marines. I decided to give this game a shot after seeing some videos posted on YouTube of its multiplayer mode. During my test, I was unable to find a single lobby in all the modes in the game. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that this game is probably dead nowadays. I didn't even know Aliens Colonial Marines even had a multiplayer mode to begin with. Now let's talk about private servers. Socom Confrontation. Socom Confrontation is a fan-beloved Socom game released on the PlayStation 3 way back in 2008. This game had a short lifespan as Sony pulled the plug on its official servers years after launch. Thankfully, it's been fully restored and is playable today. Socom Confrontation features a server browser, which made finding a lobby in this game significantly easier, and much easier to find one closer to my region. This is hands down one of the most active PlayStation 3 communities, and the player base for this game is still quite solid. This extends to during the week, and of course on the weekends. If you like tactical shooters that focus on teamwork and strategy, and a game that actually has a lot of people using the microphone, then this is a game for you. Resistance was up next, and this is actually quite active on the weekend. On a Friday night, I was able to connect to a near full lobby where I literally got my ass kicked. It seems like this community is mostly active during the weekend, as during the week it's a much smaller population. Blur is another game that was brought back last year. During my tests, I couldn't find a lobby in all the game modes that were available to me. The game also mentioned that there's 0 players, however other content creators were able to find matches. The Blur community also has a Discord, which apparently gets together and sets up lobbies. If you come across a copy of this game or simply want to revisit a great racing game, then Blur's worth the effort. PlayStation Home. PlayStation Home was an online social game released in 2008. The game is considered what is known today as a metaverse, but instead in VR, it's on the PlayStation 3. It was an experience unlike any other game on home consoles at the time, and it was actually awesome. Home left an impact that was short-lived when Sony pulled the plug on it a few years back. Thanks to the wonderful community surrounding it, this isn't going to be the case anymore, as a restoration project known as Destination Home is currently reviving the game and bringing it all back online. Currently the project is in closed beta, so you have to request access from their Discord. This is a non-profit, fan-led project that deserves all the support and the attention thrown at it. Now I do believe that PlayStation Rewired has PlayStation Home, but I was unable to test this, so if you're able to play PlayStation Home on PlayStation Rewired, please let me know in the comments down below. The Transformers games. Close to every Transformers games has been revived on the PlayStation 3 thanks to private servers. This includes Fall of Cybertron, War of Cybertron, Dark of the Moon, Revenge of the Fallen, and Rise of the Dark Spark. During my research, I was able to test Fall of Cybertron, which I found instantly with a near full lobby. This is a great surprise, as I didn't expect many of these games to still be popular, and it's also really enjoyable. Like many private servers, I would highly recommend joining their Discord, as it's still very active and should give you a good gauge on what Transformers games people are still playing. PlayStation Rewired. PlayStation Rewired is a private server community that hosts both PlayStation 3 games and various PlayStation 2 games. The games they've brought back include Motorstorm, Motorstorm Pacific, Resistance Fall of Man, PlayStation Home, and Killzone 2. From my research, it appears that PlayStation Home, Resistance Fall of Man, and Motorstorm 1 remain the most popular games on this list, with Killzone 2 and Motorstorm Pacific still having players, but it's less frequently. The best thing about PlayStation Rewired is that they have a website that actually shows the player count, which is a really nice feature. PlayStation 1 is another private server community that only hosts PlayStation 3 games. They currently have the following games online: Killzone 2, Socom Confrontation, Warhawk, and Twisted Metal Black. Metal Gear Solid Online 2. Metal Gear Solid Online 2 was a revival service for Metal Gear Solid Online. MGS Online originally released alongside Metal Gear Solid 4 back in 2008, but not too long ago, its servers were shut down. Metal Gear Solid Online 2 stepped in and brought the servers back online using private servers. My research for Metal Gear Solid Online 2 yielded that this game is still active in 2023, as other content creators have covered this game and have gameplay uploaded showing the game in action. Based on this evidence, it shows that Metal Gear Solid 2 Online is still active. Grand Theft Auto Online. Grand Theft Auto Online was originally shut down in 2020 2021 on both the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. That being said, earlier this year, the PlayStation 3 version was brought back by a group called 3TA. Unlike the private servers on this list, it uses a PKG file that you install on your PlayStation 3 in order to play it. To my basic understanding regarding this, it appears that an earlier update on GTA Online on the PlayStation 3 actually enabled PvP multiplayer. Anyways, this game is still played actively in 2023. It seemed that most of GTA Online was still intact, as I was able to access in-game shops and play the game normally just like I did before the server shutdown. Now I can't confirm if any of the story of GTA Online works or any of the PvP multiplayer, but free roam works with no problem. If you want to revisit the original GTA Online without emptying your wallet, then this is your best bet. Now I'm going to list off a bunch of games I was unable to test for this video, but from my research appear to be still active on the PlayStation 3, so if you happen to have these games in your library, definitely give them a try. The following games are God of War Ascension, Sonic All-Star Racing, Spec Ops The Line, Armored Core Verdict Day, NASCAR 15, Enemy Front, Pain, Tony Hawk Proving Grounds, WWE 2K15, Fat Princess, Sniper Ghost Warrior 1 and 2, Dungeon Siege 3, Brink, Painkiller Hell and Damnation, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 3, Dragon's Crown, Ninja Gaiden 2, Tekken 6, Street Fighter 4 Ultra, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Haze, Injustice Gods Among Us, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, Initial D, Dragon Ball Z Xenoverse, Fear 2, Fear 3, Grand Theft Auto 4 plus downloadable content, Red Dead Redemption and its Undead Nightmare DLC, and Ridge Racer 7. In my last video, I mentioned that both Bad Company 1, Bad Company 2, and 1943 were all shutting down in December of this year. It turns out that EA is shutting down a few other games this year too. Back in June, EA shut down the servers to Syndicate, and in September is now shutting down the servers to Crysis 3. For Crysis 3, you have less than a month to play this game. I covered Crysis 3 in my previous video, and overall, it took the PvP multiplayer formula that Call of Duty popularized, but mixed a lot of the nanosuit abilities that Crysis 3 had. If you want to give this game a try, or you've never played Crysis 3's multiplayer, now's the time to do it, as you have less than a month to play it. Since EA has been shutting down a lot of servers, I would highly bet that within the next year, we'll see the shutdown for both Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, Dead Space 2, and Dead Space 3's multiplayer, as it seems that EA is pretty much retiring a lot of their legacy game servers. That was the most active PlayStation 3 online communities in 2023. If you made it this far in this video, I just want to say thank you for your time and I hope you enjoyed the video. This list took forever to do. I tested over 30 games and my PlayStation 3 actually bugged out like 3 times during the testing of this video, so I apologize if it seems all over the place, but I wanted to make sure I got all my ducks in a row on this video. Anyways, if you enjoy this style of content, please consider leaving a like or even subscription. It really means a lot. Until next time guys, peace.